of the recovery and repair operation regarding the USS The Sullivans. I just want to introduce the folks here with me. Captain Lexia Littlejohn, commander of the Buffalo sector of the Coast Guard. Paul Marzello, President and CEO of the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. The Fire Commissioner of the City of Buffalo, William Rinaldo. Director of the Department of Environmental Conservation for the State of New York, Chad Staniszewski. And Don Polito of the Department of Public Works. I want to just reiterate and stress that progress continues to be made, and as we have said, as the mantra for this operation has been said, failure is not an option, and we continue to work in a united, unified, and collective fashion on the mission of the repair and recovery of USS The Sullivans. There are two main focuses for today, with nearly 60 workers now on site. The environmental remediation efforts continue, and Captain Littlejohn will give an update on the environmental remediation efforts. And secondly, crews continue to learn more and more about the ship, helping us in the recovery and repair mission. And Paul Marzello will talk about some of the things that we have learned that will enable us to move the recovery and repair of the ship forward. And finally, there will be a new configuration of the safety fencing that will enable patrons to be able to get into the Liberty Hound restaurant, still keeping safety in mind and still asking residents and visitors to pay close attention to the safety fencing, to not try to go through the safety fencing to get a glimpse of USS The Sullivans, but to be very mindful of safety at all times. But the fencing will be reconfigured so that people can get into the very popular Liberty Hound restaurant. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Paul Marzello, the President and CEO of the Naval Park.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to start where I always start, and that is to thank the community. The texts, the emails, the calls, the letters have been all very inspiring and give us a renewed sense of hope that we can do the job we are all intended to do. The company that we hired, which is an international recovery and repair company, TNT, had a full day on site yesterday for the first time. They have spent most of the day today working, and we were thankfully able to submit to them an archive from the USS The Sullivans back in 1943 when she was commissioned, which is a damage control manual. And the purpose of that manual is to provide some valuable drawings that the naval architect and the other members of the diving team were able to look at to see where the compartments are and how to access them. I've said in the past, this is a complicated process, and it has several variables, so we are trying to be extremely cautious. As of noon today, it was reported that we have removed 4,610 gallons of oily waste and 8 cubic yards of oily debris or flotsam. Also at the morning meeting, BIDCO had intended to put 2 divers into the water. Mother Nature had other ideas. The situation changed with high winds and high water levels, so that mission was postponed until tomorrow with hopefully better weather conditions. We continue to take every precaution with these divers. They are always tethered and harnessed and swim in pairs. We've established 3 means of access and egress. We have 2 ladders leading down into the ships and a basket crane dockside. As usual, we have a wrap-up meeting at 1600 every day. We will discuss the plan that will take place tomorrow, review the conditions of today with hopefully some new data. And as of 1300 today, the ship's condition is still static. There's been no change in position. She is sitting on the bottom and kind of wedged right against the shoreline. I want to end with where I began, and that is to thank this community. We are doing our best. We appreciate your patience, and with Godspeed, we're going to get this job done correctly. Let me now introduce the commander of the Coast Guard Buffalo Sector, Captain Littlejohn.
Good afternoon. As Paul said, we're working in a unified effort to conduct this response. So our goals this afternoon and throughout the response are: number 1, safety of responders and the public; 2, protection of the environment; and 3, refloat and repair the Sullivans. So I want to give you some of the goals that we have underneath of those objectives. So for safety, the Coast Guard has established a safety zone that covers the Buffalo River entrance channel and all portions of the Buffalo River. What that's going to do is it's going to require a no wake speed past the naval park. Vessels over 100 gross tons will be required to notify the Coast Guard 2 hours prior to entering the Buffalo River. And that is to ensure the safety of the divers. For protection of the environment, as Paul said, there has been oil removal conducted. We're continuing to conduct debris removal. We've also been able to maneuver the boom that's surrounding the vessel into a better shape so that it better contains the oil that was emanating from the stern of the vessel. For number 3, refloating and repairing the Sullivans, we've made progress on that with the topside survey. It is essentially an initial damage and stability assessment that's been commenced, and that will provide the information that we need to then develop a plan for repair and refloating the vessel. So we've made progress. We will continue. Hopefully the weather will cooperate tomorrow to get divers in the water and conduct a better assessment. At this time, I will turn it over to Director Staniszewski.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chad Staniszewski. I'm the Acting Regional Director for the DEC. Our role in this incident is really to support the Coast Guard relative to any environmental issues associated with this recovery. Mainly, the immediate concern is the oil that is emanating from the ship itself. We have been involved in this incident from the beginning. Our spill response team has overseen both the efforts to recover oil as well as the mitigation efforts relative to the boom, and we will be reviewing any plans for further actions relative to righting the ship and how that oil and debris will be managed. So that's really our role. We've worked with the Coast Guard on previous projects that had a very successful outcome, so we look forward to continuing to do so with this incident as well. Thank you.
As everyone has indicated, the recovery and repair operation for USS The Sullivans is a very involved one, as you can hear and as you can see. It will also be, as we have noted, a very expensive one, and again, we want to express our thanks to United States Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who was with us yesterday, committing 3 areas of federal funding to this operation, which are going to be critically important to the success of this mission. Again, we thank the media for your coverage, for you following the story, and we will now open up for your questions.
Just wanted clarification. They're still focusing right now on getting contaminants out of the ship, right? It's not water at this point. It's mainly the contaminants before they can go back to draining out water more.
Primarily contaminants. So that is what we're talking about when we say oil removal. We've removed approximately 4,000 gallons of oily water waste, essentially, which is primarily oil.
Where did it come from?
It's coming from tanks inside the ship.
So just to confirm, no divers were in the water today due to the weather, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then obviously besides that, what other issues is this weather posing? You would think middle of April you wouldn't be having to deal with this, but obviously it's Buffalo. So what is that? What goes into it now?
It just becomes a consideration when you're dealing with, number one, safety. As we talked about, safety of responders and the public is paramount. So we have to think about that when we're laying boom. That's a consideration there. We have to think about it when we're putting divers on the vessel. We have to think about it when we're putting people onto the vessel. So there are a number of considerations with respect to the weather.
Can you tell us just a little bit more, and I don't know, Paul, if you want to jump in here too with the captain. What will those divers be doing when they actually go into the compartments? And do you anticipate at some point the divers can get into the water on the outside of the hull, maybe when conditions clear up a bit, to allow also to do an inspection of the outside of the hull?
So the first thing that the divers are going to be doing is conducting an outside of the vessel survey. So we need to make sure that it's actually safe to put divers into the vessel, and I would think that we wouldn't do that until we get the vessel in a stable position. We know it's stable, water's not coming in, those types of things. So that's what I would suggest, unless you have anything else, Paul.
I think you've got it well under control.
Okay.
Well, when they actually do go into the compartments, so they'll do the outside survey first.
Correct.
When they actually do go into the compartments, what will they be doing? I mean, I know there's a lot of watertight compartments the way the ship was made originally, but can you walk us through that a little bit? I'm not saying you're a diver, I'm not either, but can you walk us through that maybe a little bit of what?
I will give you a general assessment, and then, of course, at a later time, maybe after this, we can talk with the salver and get you some more specifics. But essentially what they need to do is they need to do an assessment. They need to figure out where the water's coming in from, how is the water coming in. So that's why we want to do an outside of the vessel assessment first, and then we can, once we get more information from that, we will go inside and sort of figure out, you know, does that match up with what we're seeing on the outside? Can we repair it? Does it need epoxy? Does it need wedges? Does it need plugs? So that's kind of what we're looking for. How can we get this vessel refloated? Obviously, we've got to fix those issues in areas where the water is coming in first.
So is there a preemptive timeline in terms of hopefully getting a chance to right the ship back upright, or is this just going day by day and depending on conditions, there's just nothing that you can concretely say by X date we want to try and get this thing right?
Right. I don't have a timeline for you, unfortunately, at this point. I think the weather has not been something that's been as cooperative as we would have liked, and the stations are not as predictable as we would have liked. So unfortunately, I can't give you a good timeline at this point.
Saturday, there was mention that a Navy architect would be joining the crew this week for assessment and restoration efforts. Can you tell us what they've contributed thus far?
The Navy architect is on site. The Navy architect has done an assessment of the vessel, as I talked about the initial damage and stability assessment. So they were walking around the vessel. They used some tools and techniques to determine what is the list of the vessel, has it changed. They were also able to look at the video that Paul had shown and gotten a good idea of what the vessel looks like inside. So quite a bit of work done today.
We talked last week about the water being too cold to epoxy. What could be done from the outside? Just plug the hole, stop the leak? Do you have any idea of what will be done in the meantime?
So there's a number of different things that you can use to plug holes. So we talked about it a little bit: patches, plugs, wedges. We just need to figure out what kind of hole it is, and then of course the epoxy, which requires a certain temperature. There's a number of different techniques. We can get you more information on that.
Anyone else?
And Paul, just to clarify, I think I heard you actually on WBE and radio this morning. You're still trying to, and Captain, maybe you on this, still trying to ascertain whether there was an actual puncture in the hull, or if it's a seam that came open or something like that. You're still trying to figure that out, correct?
Absolutely, and that's what the diver's assessment is going to be able to tell us. So when we get the divers in the water, we'll have a better idea of exactly where the water is coming in from, how the water is coming in, whether it's a hole, whether it's a seam rip, whether it's hull corrosion. There's a number of different things that it could be.
And the hope is to have them in the water tomorrow.
That's the plan, yes.
Is there one way the way that it was breached? Is there a way that you're kind of hoping that it happened more than another way? Is it more beneficial if it was more of just a seam or a puncture or something like that, or do you just go about it all in the same way and trying to assess everything, but trying to make the repairs necessary to right the ship?
I think if there's an individual hull breach, that's easier than there being a consistent amount of water coming in from many different places. So I think that's what I would say in response to that question.
If inclement weather continues to be a problem and postponing work from being done, is the ship in danger of taking any more water?
The ship is fairly stable right now. So if it does take on more water, right now it's kind of right up against the pier. I don't suspect that there would be additional damage to the ship or, cause any additional kinds of problems there. But yeah, that's what I would say to that.
All right, we good?
Where did the oil come from? Can you mention that, Paul? Maybe, people think a decommissioned ship. Why is there oil on a decommissioned ship?
Yeah, I think the captain mentioned that earlier. This is an 80-year-old vessel. When she first came to Buffalo in 1977, the Navy transfers the ship to a city or a municipality, and they're supposed to give it to you without any fuel oil. But as we know, back in the 70s, there weren't the environmental concerns or the knowledge that we have now. And to turn a ship over doesn't mean that you get in there and scrub every last ounce of oil out of a ship. That's a difficult thing to do. The gas, the diesel is in the bottom of the ship. It's not in a nice controlled little tank like you have on an automobile. It's the bottom portion of the ship. So it's tucked in all kinds of nooks and crannies, and it's a difficult thing to get out. So when they turn it over to us, there are some risks with that.
Okay,
Chad, would you mind, Chad, would you mind spelling your last name for us, just so we have it on record?
You don't know how to spell it?
Just to be safe.
Staniszewski.
the normal spelling.
Yeah.
We all good? Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.